And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Friday, November 29th. I hope everybody had a fantastic Thanksgiving. I can honestly say that I did. So I hope you guys had the same experience I did. That would have made for a pretty good day. 7-game slate ahead of us, but weird NBA day. We actually have Knicks and Hornets at noon, Cavs and Hawks at 2:30, and Pelicans Grizzlies at 5 o'clock. Now, none of those games are a part of the main slate. Main slate locks at 7:30 tonight, and we have a 7-gamer to deal with. No basketball yesterday. We're coming in fresh. We've got injury reports for everybody. I think we're ready for a pretty good day. I hope you guys are as well. If you are, and even if you're not, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Engleman. Lots coming to Twitter starting Monday. Buckle up and get ready. You guys are going to get only dogs, and that is not a dog. We'll talk about it later. Crispy, good morning. Everybody that's here, man, good morning. I'm happy to have you guys. Figuring it's a pretty thin herd, but at the same time, a lot of people might be off today. Not me. I'm here to talk basketball. And we're going to do that right now. The Orlando Magic are 4.5-point favorites in Brooklyn. 214.5 total. This is the lowest total on today's slate. This is also the lowest pace game that I have today by more than 2 possessions. Jose, probably not, but we'll see how much time I have. My only priority is the main slate getting done, but we'll see. So Orlando is pretty normal for today, at least. We're kind of used to their injury report. Only thing that we're really dealing with for the Magic is the fact that Gary Harris is out. Obviously, Paolo Banchero out, but that's been forever at this point. And we're really not getting all that much ownership coming into Orlando. We've got, Franz got to 10 on DraftKings. Jalen Suggs got to 12 on FanDuel. John Isaac got to 17 on DraftKings. I mean, I can see it just in my exposures. I actually was able to run my own sim this morning before we got started and grab my top 50. The only guys that are getting any ownership on DraftKings are Franz at 10, Suggs at 8, Isaac at 17. They're also the only Orlando Magic guys that ended up in my lineup. And for the most part, I feel okay there. I mean, I don't like getting Isaac. Like, I'm not a huge fan of playing him on days where he's getting a little bit of love. I have him. I don't think that he grades out. I mean, like, on a point per dollar basis, he will always grade out well just because he's a fantasy point per minute guy. But I don't know. Like, I don't have his particular rates all that fantastic for this spot, but he is my most exposed Orlando guy. I think that's just a testament to how cost effective he really is to get to. It's just a minutes thing for me more than anything. But I didn't get much Franz. I didn't get much Suggs. Obviously, Brooklyn is crazy hurt right now. But it's not like Orlando's some juggernaut offense. There's a reason we're seeing this being such a low-paced game. I mean, I have Orlando losing 3 possessions below their average. I have it at 2.8 for Brooklyn. It's just gross across the board. And I don't hate the idea of not getting too much of an early game. We're going to be talking about Brooklyn for sure. But they're just, they've got this 3-headed center monster now that complicates matters a little bit. All these guys that have stepped into like slightly bigger roles have all had their prices stabilize. But if we're not getting to too much of an Orlando team that I don't think that looks that great, that's in the lowest totaled game, that's in the lowest pace game, and I'm out. I'm just out. West Coast Supply says, I don't like dry turkey. You should have ate at my house, brother. No dry turkey in this joint. Sous vide all of the dark meat for about 24 hours. I did 2 giant turkey breasts sous vide at for about 12 hours. Toss those into the fryer for about 3 minutes just to get the crunchiest skin possible. Delicious. Sausage and sage stuffing. Delicious. Mashed potatoes, scratch gravy, delicious. I crushed Thanksgiving yesterday. I crushed it. I absolutely crushed it. Top to bottom. I have so much turkey left to eat. Gonna make some turkey soup with all of my additional turkey stock that I made. Gonna make a turkey quesadilla. Oh, the perfect way to use those leftovers. Flip them into something else. I made a turkey sandwich last night at about 10 o'clock. Had to go late night on it. It's the only way to finish off a Thanksgiving. And for the first time, I mean this sincerely. I'm not a big NFL guy. I'd make that pretty clear. Yesterday was the first time in the history of Thanksgiving that I didn't watch football. Never turned it on. Didn't know who won anything till this morning. Felt pretty good. Steven, don't want dry turkey, eat thighs. Don't want dry turkey, cook the breast correctly. Cook the breast correctly. My breasts were so moist yesterday. How moist were they? I don't have a good joke for it, but they were fantastic. The problem is everybody overcooks it. I cooked my turkey breasts to a crisp 134 degrees internal temperature. Popped them in the freezer for a half hour after they were done getting up to 134. And dropped those joints in the fryer. Couldn't be better. Turkey grilled cheese with pepper jack. Goombas. Love it. Love it. Love it. I will absolutely positively do this. No doubt about it. All right, let's talk Brooklyn. This is where it gets bad. So we'll start with the guys that are definitely not playing today. That's Bojan Bogdanovic, Noah Clowney, Jalen Martin, Dennis Schroeder, Day'Ron Sharpe, and Cam Thomas. On top of that, Q-Tag Nick Claxton, Q-Tag Dorian Finney-Smith, Q-Tag Cam Johnson, Q-Tag Jalen Wilson. I also did, I took the 2 wings off the turkey, did those sous vide, fried them for 2 minutes, tossed them in buffalo sauce, made 2 giant turkey wings, buffalo turkey wings. Yeah, I didn't screw around yesterday, guys. As analytic as I am when it comes to the NBA, I'm the same way about everything in my life. Football is only good when you're watching Red Zone. The individual game, to watch an individual game of the NFL is really an unfun process. It's just not made for it anymore. You take me to like one of those new sports bars where it seems like you're in the arena or stadium. That I can get for that. But like an individual game is just really not fun. It's too much stoppage. I watch too much soccer where they play for 45 straight minutes without commercial breaks. Oh no, the product is shit, Fistula. It is. It is. It's unequivocally shit. Red Zone? Amazing. Amazing. Josh, I had a brisket and sausage and burn ends. Turkey sucks for me. I mean, not like he ate bad, but I love me some turkey. I love me some turkey. All right, so Brooklyn. Look, it's kind of impossible to really want to talk about these guys. I mean, Cam Johnson, Jalen Wilson, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Nick Claxton are all questionable. As of right now, I have them projected for 113 minutes. I mean, I don't know which one of those guys is going to play, which one of those guys is not going to play, who's going to get the impact. So let's just start here. I like Keon Johnson a lot. Now, I don't have a great feel of how much he's going to play. I don't have a great feel of who's going to be in a starting lineup. All of this could look very different as we move through the day. But I do think Keon Johnson is going to show us some value. Zaire Williams should probably look solid no matter what news we get. Ben Simmons will look solid no matter what news we get. Like Cam Johnson will be okay, and Dorian Finney-Smith will be okay, and Trendon Watford will be okay, and potentially like Shake Milton could look good on DraftKings. Potentially Tyrese Martin could look good on DraftKings. We just don't know who's playing here. Luckily for us, it's a 7:30 start, so we're going to get all of this information. I just don't want to spend too much time here because we're talking about like half of the minutes projected to Brooklyn today are to Q tags that are either starters or knocking on the door of being starters. Like theoretically, all 4 of these dudes could be in the starting lineup today. I can't dig into this right now with any sort of confidence. I just don't see it. Yeah, I ate way too much yesterday. Way too much. I feel like I don't need to eat for days at this point. So I immediately woke up and had a bagel. You know, got to make it a little bit better there. I'm a little out of focus. There we go. That's a little bit better. So I'm going to just keep going on Brooklyn now. We're going to break it down on the deeper dive and live before lock, but we need to learn a little bit more about who's going to be playing here. It's just, it's a fool's errand to make this conversation happen right now. So next one up, Clippers, 4.5 point dogs in Minnesota, 217.5 total. So this is the second lowest total. There's only 2 games below 223. And I have this basically tied for the second lowest pace. Now, we're waiting on the Norm Powell news once again. Obviously, his status will have a bit of a trickle-down effect to the rest of the Clippers. There's not a ton of ownership coming in right now with the assumption that Powell is in. We've got 15 to Harden on DraftKings. I totally agree with it. I got to 20. Nobody on FanDuel for the Clippers is in double digits. That makes some sense to me. Although, admittedly, I do think Ivica Zubac is fine. Zubac's 18% owned on DraftKings. Makes a lot of sense to me. He was 19% optimal for me. And then the only other guy in double digits in ownership right now is the flat minimum Mo Bamba, who's playing most of the center minutes behind Ivica Zubac in best case scenario. Do I have him over projected? I think that I do. But he is getting ownership, and I did get a little bit of him. No, I don't think that I did. 16 minutes last time out, 17 in the game before that, 16 the game before that. I gave him 16. He looks like a decent value. I get it. The interesting thing for me is I got Harden, I got Zoo. I got 6% of Derek Jones, 8% of Chris Dunn, 4% of Terrence Mann, 6% of Kevin Porter, a share of Nick Batum. So I'm getting a lot of the Clippers, but I'm only really getting to Harden and Zubac into double digits. And that's really the only guys you should be paying attention to. But this is a weird-ass Clippers team, man. Terrible spot as well. Terrible spot. They lose 2.1 possessions below their average in this matchup. If you're paying attention to the Clippers today, it's Harden and Zubac. Mo Bamba as a backup because he's the flat 3K. And then we just need to find out what the status is going to actually be for Norm Powell. I don't think there's much to say for the Clippers. I also don't think that there's much to say for the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is a team that doesn't move their rotation around. I think we need to be very, very, very aware of Mike Conley at this point. Came back, played 32 minutes. I still only went 28 today. I'll probably get to 30 by the time we get to lock. This dude's just playing those 30 minutes when he's available to play them now. But for ownership for these guys, 10% to Conley on DraftKings, close to 20 on FanDuel. I agree with both of those numbers. I honestly think that he's probably under-owned across both sites. Naz Reid is basically 10 on both sites. He is the guy that I got to the most. I think that's just a function of an early slate and running this stuff without all of our news. And he looks okay. Like he should be around 10% owned. Then there's basically nothing else coming in. Julius Randle got north of 10 on FanDuel, that is. 7,300. That's $600 cheaper than it is on DraftKings. And I totally agree there. And then I think that Anthony Edwards on FanDuel should probably be a little bit more than 7% owned. I think he's a tad under owned. I had him 17% optimal, 30% boom score. What is my boom formula for today on FanDuel? I closed it. 4.5 plus 4.5 or something in that neighborhood, if I remember correctly. So I kind of like a couple pieces here for Minnesota. They look a little bit better on the FanDuel side than the DraftKings side. On DK, I don't expect to have Ant. I don't really expect to have Randall. It's probably just going to be Conley and Reed. These guys are just locked into this like 8-man rotation plus like 4 minutes to Rob Dillingham. And they don't have anything on their injury report other than Joe Ingles that matters today. So the 2 7:30 starts are done. Now we move it on to 3 8 o'clock games. First of which that we're going to talk about, the Boston Celtics, 9.5 point favorites in Chicago, 238 total. Now everybody's available for Boston, but for Chicago, Q-tag Kobe White, Q-tag Dalen Terry, Q-tag Jalen Smith. I actually have this line 5 points higher than the market. So I'm not expecting Kobe White to play. And I expect that line to move. Now, if we're talking Boston, they look incredible because this matchup is amazing for them. The Chicago defense is terrible. Very, 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 very bad. Obviously, Boston's offense is, as good as any team in the league, if not the best. And they're at full strength. So we're currently projecting 30% ownership to Jason Tatum, 20 on FanDuel, 40 to Jaylen Brown, 30 on FanDuel, 25 to Derek White on both sites, 10 to Holiday on DraftKings, 10 to Al Horford on DraftKings. And I have every bit of that. I have 34% of Tatum. I have 42% of Jaylen Brown. I have 26% of Derek White, 14 of Drew Holiday, 18 of Al Horford. I think you have to get to Boston today. I think you have to. They all look really, really good because of this matchup. They should beat the brakes off of Chicago. They're going to bomb threes. How bad has Chicago been for 3-point defense? Let's get that on the screen. All right. I don't know why I went to dunks and threes. Should have went to cleaning the glass. Because obviously, no one takes threes like the Celtics. They get them up like it's their job. I guess because it's their job. If we take a look at defensive three-pointers allowed, where does Chicago rank? Okay, so at least they do limit threes. They are 5th in three-point attempts allowed. They are 8th in corner threes and 11th in non-corner threes. That could have been a lot worse. They could have been like Atlanta, who just gives them up. Although, oddly enough, Hawks beat the Celtics. But at least that is a very, 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 very slight help. Yeah, power. Also, that's a great point. We got to remember, these are NBA Cup games. I should have touched on that for the first two. So I'm going to go through the standings quickly. So Orlando is 2-0. Brooklyn is 1-2. The only teams that are still alive in East Group A are the Magic and the Knicks, who are both 2-0. So the Nets have nothing to play for in that one. Orlando will want to win that game, and then they'll be playing for the group against the Orlando Knicks game should likely be for the group. And then Clippers, Minnesota. Clippers are 1-1. Minnesota's 1-2. So Minnesota's already out. Clippers are technically still alive, but they would need to get huge point differential on this game and the Portland game to really have a chance. They're probably already out just based on point differential. They'll have a hard time beating any ties out. And then, as I said, Minnesota is already cooked. So for Boston and Chicago, Boston is 2-1. Bulls are 2-1. Hawks are 2-1. Cleveland's 1-1. Everybody is technically still alive here. So don't be surprised to see starter minutes juiced. It might just not matter because Chicago's so bad. But Boston is going to try to kick the shit out of Chicago here. And shouldn't have much of an issue doing it. So it's the main 5 guys: Tatum, Brown, White, Holiday, Horford. If you want me to rank them, that would be Brown, Tatum, Holiday, White, Horford. And then, since I'm guessing somebody's going to ask about Kristaps Porzingis, I just don't think he is set to play enough minutes yet. Still 7,500 center only on DraftKings, 7,600 power forward center on FanDuel. If you're going to get him anywhere, it's FanDuel because of the power forward eligibility. But I think you're just sticking to those main 5 guys. Now, the Chicago side is basically the same situation as Brooklyn with these Q tags. And they don't look good, which really shouldn't be that surprising. They're running into a buzzsaw here. No one's getting ownership. 6% to Jalen Smith on DraftKings is the most of anybody on DK. 5% to Dosunmu and Levine. I'm basically going to do nothing here. I had 1 share of Bazelis, 1 share of Jalen Smith, 1 share of Levine, Vooch, and White. Now, maybe this looks a little bit different if Kobe White ends up out and Jalen Smith ends up out and Dalen Terry ends up out. But it's hard to want to try to get to a bunch of the Bulls here against Boston. This is an absolutely horrific spot for them. So grab all of the Boston that you could find. Don't do the same thing for Chicago. Ugh. Pistons, 6.5 point favorites 6.5 point underdogs in Indiana, 229 total. For this group, the Pistons are 2-0. Indy is 0-2. So this game doesn't actually mean anything for the Pacers. They are already out. But the Pistons want this one in a big way because then they'll be playing Milwaukee for all the marbles in the group. Now we have a Q tag on Cade Cunningham and a Q tag on Tobias Harris. So talking about Detroit is basically impossible right now. But Detroit's going for it if these guys can go. We're at 10% ownership to Ivy. No one else in double digits, although Cade, Harris, and Ivy are all 9 on FanDuel. If Cade plays, I think he'll be under-owned for the day. DraftKings, he's expensive, but I would roll the dice. FanDuel only at 9,200, 9% owned. That's proper ownership. But like, if they're all in, there's no one here that you're going out of your way to get to. There just isn't. Thompson is a lock. Well, Thompson is fully unplayable, but you know, that's one way to look at it. There's really nothing here. And there should be. I mean, Indy's defense isn't very good. This is a really nice pace up spot for the Pistons. But if we don't have that Cade, like if Cade and Tobias are both in, like you're really only paying attention to Cade, Tobias, and Jaden Ivey. Maybe a hair of Tim Hardaway. 3,800 shooting guard, small forward eligible. I could see it. You know, there's a case to be made as like contrarian beef stew on FanDuel, power forward center. But that is a down the line type of play. I just don't see anybody you go crazy for here for Detroit. Now, if Cade ends up out again, if Tobias ends up out again, then we're going to be able to juice Jaden Ivey. Malik Beasley will look a little bit better. You know, you can give Asar Thompson a couple extra minutes. They start to look... We'll unlock some things if we get one of these guys out. We'll unlock a few things if we get both of these guys out. But there's just not a ton here. But one thing I can tell you, you're not playing Asar Thompson. Probably no matter how that news comes out. There's nothing less of a lock than Asar Thompson, who probably can't play more than 20 to 22 minutes. But, you know, you want to lock that in? By all means. He is currently projected for 0% ownership on DraftKings and 0% ownership on FanDuel, where he's even more unplayable. Now, the Indy side, a little bit different here. They're still without Ben Shepherd, still without Aaron Nesmith, still without Aaron Nemhard, Andrew Nemhard, too many A names. Mathurin pulling a ton of ownership here. 30 on DraftKings, 20 on FanDuel. Turner is 30 on DraftKings, 15 on FanDuel. Pascal Siakam is 15 apiece on both sites. Quentin Jackson is 15% owned on both sites. You know who's not getting any ownership? Tyrese Halliburton, 5 on both sites. And, you know, I guess I kind of like Halliburton as like a pay-up contrarian option. His price isn't that crazy. But I'm getting all the same ownership as the public here. I got 40% of Turner, 38 of Mathurin, 15 of Jackson and Siakam. Now, it is a pace down spot for Indy. They lose 2 possessions below their average, but it's still Detroit on the opposite side. Even if they're better, they're still the Pistons. So there's a lot to like here for the Indiana Pacers today. I would like to have a little bit more Halliburton. I just don't expect that to be the case. But Mathurin for 6,300, guard forward eligibility, clearly the best dude you can get to. But I have Turner 20% optimal, Siakam 19, Mathurin 18, Quentin Jackson 18. There's a lot to like here for the Pacers today. Their pricing is pretty good. And it's all the same story on FanDuel. I don't disagree with that ownership in any way. I'm guessing they're one of the more owned teams. Yeah. So Boston is the most owned team on today's slate. Indiana is second. And I completely agree with it. It's a shame they don't have anything to play for, but they also don't have enough bodies where their rotation matters today. Like, they're just playing the dudes they play. But they don't have any incentive to, let it rip. They could do whatever they want here, and it doesn't matter. Keep your eye on the Pistons, though. This game means a lot to them. All right. Let's touch on this quickly. Boom. It's Black Friday, both literally and as our promo. The promo code's Black Friday. There's a link in the description of this video. If you click that link, that gives you the opportunity to sign up at Stokastic for 50% off anything you're choosing. Any core or max package for any individual sport. You want everything we have for NBA? It's 50% off for a week or a month, whichever you choose. That gets you all of our projections, our ownership, any advanced data we have, like boom bust tool, optimal rates, things like that. It gives you access to our entire simulation package, our single lineup sim, where you build a lineup by hand and then can simulate it against a player pool and get simulated ROI and win rate and cash rate. It's the most fun way to build a lineup by a mile. I highly recommend it. That's not the end of our sim packages, though. We have a contest generator. You can generate 5,000 lineups in 30 seconds. You can simulate that entire contest. If you're mass entry, you want to use our big boy sims. Single lineup sim can get you there, but it's going to be a little bit more work. We have everything you could possibly want in the DFS side right now, and you guys can get in at 50% off the normal price for a week or a month. This deal goes away on Sunday. It's not going to last very long. I highly recommend that if you watch these shows, you take advantage of it right now. Again, link in the description, or just make sure you're typing in Black Friday as the promo code. Oh, man, this is going to be a fun one, isn't it? All right, let's go to game number 8. The final 8 o'clock start. Toronto Raptors, 6.5-point dogs in Miami, 223 total. This one's relatively normal for today. The Raptors are just missing all the guys that are always missing. Bruce Brown, Grady Dick, Kelly Olynyk, Emmanuel Quickley. And then for Miami, only Kevin Love is questionable. Everybody else that's normally around is around. Now, we're not getting a ton of love coming into Toronto. Scotty Barnes is 10 to 15% owned on both sites. Jacoby Walter is 20 on DraftKings, 10 on FanDuel. He got the start on Friday out of nowhere. And it was so, I don't know why I said Friday, Wednesday. And it was so crazy that DraftKings still didn't move his price. So Jacoby Walter is the flat min 3K shooting guard only. He's 3,600 on FanDuel. I got to 16% of him. He looks like a great value right now. Now, he's not a good per minute guy, not even close. But at flat 3K, if he starts again, yeah, we're going to be paying attention to him. And then the only other guy that I got with any sort of bulk is Scotty Barnes. I got 16%. He's 13% owned. I actually think he's a hair under owned, so I find him interesting. I think you could play RJ Barrett on FanDuel a lot better than DraftKings. He's $600 cheaper. I think you could play Jake Puddle a little bit more on FanDuel than you can on DraftKings. He's $400 cheaper. The rest of these guys, Akbaji, Davion Mitchell, Chris Boucher, Shed, Mogbo, Battle, nah, there's nothing else here. Really, the only things that you're paying attention to are Scotty Barnes, Jacoby Walter, and RJ Barrett on FanDuel. On the Miami side, more of a FanDuel question than a DraftKings question. Tyler Hero is 11% owned on DraftKings. No one else on Miami is north of 7. It's very different on the FanDuel side. Duncan Robinson is $200 cheaper. He's 20% owned. Bam Adebayo is $400 cheaper. He's 18% owned. And then Tyler Hero is $400 cheaper, 20% owned. I do think Duncan Robinson is a bit over-owned on the FanDuel side. I think you could find different versions of him pretty easily. Looks fine on DraftKings at 4,600. I did get to 8%. But the only guy that I really got to was Hero. 7,800, point guard, shooting guard eligible. He's in 14% of my lineups. I got a share of Bam, 2 shares of Jimmy. They're not, Bam's probably a hair under-owned, but he's Bam. It's center. We have a lot of them. I don't think Jimmy Butler looks good. Only focus that I have from Miami is Tyler Hero. But Miami just does such weird stuff with their rotation too, which, somebody plays 30 minutes in back-to-back games and then the next day they play 8. And you're just like, well, how did that happen? And it's like, oh, well, they played. It's like they have more contracts than the rest of the league. They play people and I forget they're on the team. Out of nowhere. Josh Richardson plays 28 minutes and then out of the rotation. These guys get yanked around so much, that the only guy that I really want to pay any real attention to is Hero. Let's talk schedule for the rest of the day. That'll be pretty easy. Let me hop in here. Got it. So obviously I am doing this show right now. NFL strategy show. Lofty and Greg will be coming up next at 10 a.m. There will be an NFL live before lock with Lofty and Ben for today's game. I will be back with DK at 5:30 to talk about this main slate. Greg and Spags will be live before lock at 6:30. And then Greg and I will be hopping on playback at 7:30. Can't beat it, guys. Breaking down a ton of basketball today. Two to go. Dueling 10 o'clock late night hammers. The Oklahoma City Thunder are 1.5 point favorites in Los Angeles, taking on the Lakers. OKC is still without Alex Caruso, still without Ousmane Dieng, no Alex Dukas, no Chet Holmgren, no Nikola Topic, and no Jalen Williams. Q tag on Adam Flagler. For the Lakers, it's just a doubtful tag on Jackson Hayes, and then the normal guys that are usually here. Very little ownership coming into OKC. 15% to Hartenstein on DraftKings. Next highest guy on DK is Shea at 4. FanDuel slightly different. Shea got to 12. Jalen Williams got to 12. Lou Dort got to 17, which I don't agree with, although he is $600 cheaper. No real ownership coming in anywhere else. Hartenstein is $700 more expensive on FanDuel, so that becomes a little bit more difficult. So as I look at it, only guy that I really got to was Hartenstein. He ended up in 20% of my lineup, 6,800. He's playing 30 minutes now. He's really good, so feels great. I got a little Shea, a couple lineups of Jalen Williams, nothing crazy. Shea probably an interesting pay up to be contrarian option. Not really getting the same ownership as some of the other guys at the top end. I could see it. You want to turn Jason Tatum lineup into a Shea Gilgeous-Alexander lineup. That makes sense to me. Shea definitely looks better on FanDuel for sure. I think Isaiah Joe looks okay on FanDuel as well. He came back, played some bigger minutes. I only went 26. But he's shooting guard only, 4,100, 3% owned. I like that. I don't hate that as a contrarian option. I mean, this is a great spot for OKC. The Lakers defense is absolutely terrible. But pricing-wise, these guys have either already been juiced or they're in so long that they're not moving around all that much. That's why you're not seeing much ownership coming into Shea and Jalen Williams. And the only guy that we're getting to is Hartenstein because he's just not going to be 6,800 in a week. He's the only place that we could squeeze any real value out. Now, the Lakers basically getting ownership in one spot, and then they got a couple guys that are the same. So AD is 30 on DraftKings and FanDuel. I completely agree with it. I think he looks really good. He's 10-4 on DK, 11-2 on FanDuel with power forward eligibility. I got 30% of him. Very, very happy to pay up for AD. Now, what I will say is that, and obviously these guys are different positions, but a 33-4 gap on ownership from AD to Shea. Like if you build a lineup with AD at the utility spot, turning that into Shea might just look really good if you want to sell some ownership for not that much of a sale of fantasy points. Like AD should definitely be owned more than him, but I think it should be like 2.5 to 1, not 10 to 1, basically. Then we get to LeBron, Reeves, Connect, and Russell. They're all 10% owned on DraftKings. LeBron's 15 on FanDuel. Reeves is 15 on FanDuel. Connect and Russell are like 5. I didn't get to a crazy amount of the Lakers, and I'm under on LeBron, which I usually am. But I did get to 14% of Reeves, 10 of Connect, and 14 of Russell. So I'm at least meeting the field on all of their extra dudes, if not going slightly over. So I'm actually exactly the same projected ownership for the Lakers. I've got 74%. The field has 74%. But I basically just took a little bit away from LeBron and gave it to Reeves, Connect, and Russell. I don't think you could play Rui or any of these other guys on the team. I'd say I probably like Russell the most just because of 4,400. That price is really easy to get to. Ignoring AD here. Like AD is unequivocally the best Laker. It's not close. I would say Russell would be my second option, which, you know, doesn't feel good. LeBron would be third. I just don't happen to have him. Busy $9,900 price tag. So we're through 6 games, and now we are reaching the final game. The Sacramento Kings, 4.5 point favorites in Portland, 223 total. So for Sacramento, still no DeMar DeRozan, still no Trey Lyles. I'll hit the Portland injuries when we get to Portland. There's a lot of ownership coming into these guys on FanDuel, a little bit less so on DraftKings. We saw Malik Monk play a ton of minutes last time out. He's 24% owned. He ended up in 28% of my lineups. Now, I only went 28 minutes. Maybe I end up at 30. But Monk is very clearly, to me, the guy that you end up the most of just because of his price and position. And then De'Aaron Fox is a little over 10% owned. It's exactly where I have him. I think you can make a case that he's a little under-owned, but they're the two guys that you really pay attention to. You can always get to a 6% owned Sabonis. That wouldn't be crazy to me in any way. Really nice GPP option. And then we do have Jay Crowder here now. I went 26 minutes. That's what he played in the opener. He's 3,800, small forward, power forward eligible. Right now, 1% owned. I mean, he's a better value than that for sure. If he's going to be playing those minutes at that price, we're going to be playing Jay Crowder as a value option today, which sucks. He's the flat min on FanDuel, small forward, power forward. Assuming Jay Crowder starts again, Jay Crowder is going to be a value play all day. But where these guys are really getting their ownership is FanDuel. I mentioned Fox is 13 on DraftKings. He's 43 on FanDuel. He's $500 cheaper. I mentioned Monk is 24 on DraftKings. He's 41 on FanDuel. Murray's 10. Sabonis is 15. Crowder's 10. Ellis is 10. Sacramento Kings look really good on FanDuel. Completely different team. But on DraftKings, I want Monk. I want Fox. And I want Jay Crowder. That's not going to be popular, but you have to. Look, he's not a good per minute dude. But he's not priced correctly either. What do I think about a Drew or Dort swap for Monk? Sure. Look, any swap is okay. It's all about what's in the rest of your lineup. You can't have all of the perfect highly owned plays. Otherwise, you're just playing cash. So, yeah, that works for me. Both guys I would have. Finally, Portland. So they're actually a little easier to talk about than they've been. Donovan Clingan is out. Jeremy Grant is doubtful. Robert Williams is doubtful. And Chris Murray is questionable. John, no eggnog. Anthony, you're all good. It's just how it works. It's not that I had a good take or a bad take. It's just the math was on my side. Like, I don't think that I was right. There's only one right answer. Whether or not a guy plays well or not means nothing to me. So don't sweat it. You're good. So Portland. One guy is getting a bunch of ownership on the DraftKings side. That would be Denny Avdia, coming in at 49% ownership. And that ain't going anywhere. He's 5,300, small forward eligible. I have him 48% optimal. He's in 48% of my lineups, and he's 49% owned. Completely agree. Now, FanDuel's a little different. Simons is $300 cheaper at 5,800. He's 13% owned. I think he's wildly under-owned. Anthony Simons can get buckets. Like, why can't he pay off a $6K price tag? That is crazy low. Crazy low. I don't hate the idea of getting to DeAndre Ayton, but on FanDuel, where he's only $6K, he's already 20% owned. Avdi is 30 on FanDuel. Shaden Sharp's 10 and deserves it. Scoot Henderson is 10 and deserves it. There's a lot of ownership coming into Portland today on FanDuel, and it's deserved. Honestly, I can make a case that there should be more. On DraftKings, it's pretty much Avdia, but I like Anthony Simons as a pivot. I like Shaden Sharp as a pivot. I don't mind getting to a 6% owned DeAndre Ayton. I think Portland's pretty sneaky. This is a team that I would like to have a lot of for swaps. Let me make whatever changes I need to make in that 7:30 to 8 o'clock window, and then I can shuffle the deck chairs a bit at 10 o'clock. But that's the slate. 7 gamer ahead of us today. It's not bad. It's not too bad. But yeah, I think Anthony Simons is like wildly under-owned for his current price. I don't know why he's as cheap as... I mean, I know why he's as cheap as he is, but he shouldn't be. He just shouldn't be. Range of outcomes, Anthony. Range of outcomes. That's all DFS. Hawks are going to get blown out today. They might. They're only 4.5-point dogs, though. Hawks aren't bad when they're at full strength. Top plays. This is what I ran earlier for my contenders. I had Keon Johnson, Avdia, Jacoby Walter, Jaylen Brown, AD, Scotty Barnes, Turner, Fox, Zubats, Tatum. And that's obviously going to move around. We have no idea if Jacoby Walter is going to start today. I don't know how many minutes Keon Johnson's going to play, but, you know, he's 3,200. On the FanDuel side, Crowder, Fox, Simons, AD, Conley, Sabonis, Hero, Avdia, Ayton, Zaire Williams. Again, this will all move around, but flat min Crowder, I get it. I get it. I mean, the Cavs may be on another level, but they're still only 4-point favorites in this game. So that's how much better they are. We know the answer to these types of things now. Atlanta wins this game like 38% of the time or something. So, yeah. One of the closest lines on the slate. Tied for the second. I mean, we have one game at 1.5. 1, 2, 3, and 4 games at 4.5. It's as close of any matchup that you could expect today. Tyrese Martin greater than Crowder? He might be. But as of right now, you can't play Tyrese Martin at all. Tyrese Martin is a 0% owned dude at this moment. If injuries change for Brooklyn, that might be different, but it's Crowder 100 times out of 100 in this right at this moment. Brandon, don't be bringing facts into this equation. We don't use those around here, remember? It's a fun slate. I like it. I kind of like the fact that we had off yesterday, and now today is actually the end of the week. Because in my mind, I feel like I'm doing a Monday show since I was off yesterday, but it's not. I'm actually, then I don't have to do shit tomorrow. That's fun. I like that. I like that. Alrighty, guys. I think we're going to wrap this bad boy up. I'm going to go get a drink. A little thirsty. Got a lot going on. Contenders will be out. I don't know. Sometime soon. Next hour or so. What else we got going on? Yeah, deeper dive later today. Live before lock, playback. I mean, you'll get 3 more hours of NBA coverage starting at 5:30 tonight. So if you can't get the questions answered at that point, they might not ever be answered. It's going to be a weird one, though. It's going to be a weird one. For now, guys, I'm a dip. I really do hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Mine was awesome. So I hope everybody else had an awesome one as well. But good luck today. Enjoy everything. Back again at 5:30. NFL strategy show coming up next. Getting you guys a little bit of a breakdown for this Sunday. So enjoy some NFL, everybody. They'll start it up in 13 minutes. Later.